Okay, so thank you for everyone joining our Self-Sourcing a HDR Internship session this morning. My name is Susan Schlinker. I'm one of the HDR Partnership Officers in the Graduate Research Education and Development team. As I mentioned, I'm here with the fabulous Ivy Chen, who is a GRE+D Admin Support Officer. She'll be putting a few links into the chat for you along the way. And also by the amazing Juliana Chavez, who is one of our HDR interns who undertook an internship earlier this year. And we'll be hearing from Juliana about her HDR internship experience a little bit later in the workshop. So before we get going, I know we're all Zoom experts after working remotely, but just to let you know that this session will be recorded. It would be great if you can keep your microphone and your camera off until you're prompted to engage, but you're very welcome to use the chat tool to ask questions. We will have a designated Q&A section at the end of the session, but you're very welcome to put questions into the chat as we go through, and I will try and answer them then and there for you, because sometimes it makes it a little bit easier in the context of the specific information. Before we kick off, I'd also like to warmly acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Turrbal and Yagara, as the First Nations owners of the lands where QUT now stands. We pay respect to their elders, laws, customs, and creation spirits, recognizing that these lands have always been places of teaching, research, and learning. And I'd also like to acknowledge the important role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within the QUT community. And also, if you're zooming in from anywhere other than Brisbane, I would like to extend my respects to the traditional owners of the lands in which you are zooming in from as well. So today we're covering what a HDR internship is, how to self-source an internship, and we do this with a three-step process on identifying your network, forming a relationship with the industry partner before pitching the internship to them. And we've found that this formula or strategy is very successful for self-sourcing. So I'll be sharing that strategy with you today to increase your chances of success in finding a HDR internship. We're also delighted to hear the experience from Juliana, who's one of our previous HDR interns. And then I'll be going through some of the training and resources and support available for you as well, and lots of time for Q&A. If you are not familiar with GRE+D, myself and Simon, who are the HDR Partnership Officers, sit within the Graduate Research Education and Development team. So GRE+D has two main aims, which is to help HDRs complete their thesis and also to equip HDRs for life after their degree. So industry engagement is the teal, I wanted to say corner of a circle, but circles don't have corners, do they? The teal section of the circle. And so we are really interested in helping to equip HDRs for life after their degree, to be able to prepare them to undertake work in industry. And we do that through our HDR Industry Engagement Program. So before we kick off, I wanted to give you an idea of what an internship looks like. And to do that, we're going to hear from one of our students, David Sutton, who undertook an internship in defense science tech. So I hope you enjoy this video.
My name is David Sutton. I'm a Faculty of Science PhD student at QUT. My research has been involved in laser-driven chemistry, so I do photocatalytic chemical reactions, which basically just means I use light as a catalyst. And the reason I use a laser is because we want to precision target exactly where we want a chemical reaction to happen. And what that lets us do is actually make micro-manufacturing technologies out of this approach that just use light and then a little bit of a chemical to actually create microstructures out of gold. So my internship project involved working with the Queensland Defence Science Alliance, which is basically a group that combines the different universities in Queensland and then targets research towards defence capabilities and projects. So my project in particular looked at extending the functionality of an existing detection prototype that we have which we use for detecting all sorts of different things in the field. My job was basically to try and give it new functionality by allowing it to work in multiple orientations and configurations. So the everyday duties involved doing a lot of experimental work, basically, under many different conditions. So there was a lot of just moving things around the lab to try and detect it in all sorts of weird places, and just to see what the limits of our ability to detect these different samples were. And then on other days, I would be analysing all that data. And as a result of me and my fellow colleagues who also received this internship, they actually planned to have a big kind of symposium where we all get together and do a presentation on our internships and how we all went, and just to show kind of the quality of the science that's going on here in Queensland. I think that there's a lot that's come out of this project, both for me and for the QDSA. Personally, I think I've been able to see that I am maybe a little bit more capable than I give myself credit for sometimes. So when you get thrown into a new project after working on something different, you tend to think that you're only good at one thing, but actually your skills are really broadly applicable. And applying my gained skills to a new project was really eye-opening in a lot of ways, and kind of made me feel a lot better about my own capabilities that I've developed throughout my PhD. And I think everyone should have a go at it, just because it gives you contacts, it gives you opportunities that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and you meet new people, which is always really, really cool. For me, just gaining a little bit of that industry insight was really, really useful. Most people know there's two main paths after a PhD, academia or industry, and it was nice to get a little taste of that other side of the potential opportunities, to see kind of what would be waiting there if you chose to pursue the industry path. I enjoyed the aspect of kind of prototyping and the quicker back and forth that tends to be involved in industry. Having done this project, I'm really looking more strongly at an industry pathway kind of after I finish my PhD and I end up going out into the workforce. So I'm really excited for that, which is pretty cool.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that video from David about his HDR internship experience. And I think what I love most about HDR internships, and you'll certainly notice this when we hear from Juliana a little bit later in the workshop, is that each internship is so bespoke and it's so unique, and no two are the same. And I really also appreciated David's comment that there's those two main pathways after you complete your HDR degree, academia or industry. And he felt that the internship really just exposed him to that other side, which is exactly the experience that we want to be able to provide you with. Obviously, you're doing your HDR degree, and so you're familiar with the world of academia, but just to give you that taste of the world of industry so that you're able to see other options besides academia. It's a very valuable opportunity. But let's kick into some of the basic information about what a HDR internship is and what industry is. And it's interesting, I've had a number of students say to me when I say to them industry internships, they say, oh no, I don't want to work in manufacturing. And so we try and raise awareness that industry is a lot broader than that, and it can actually refer to any potential end user of research. That's including but not limited to businesses, organizations in the private sector, governments, government agencies, government business enterprises, non-government organizations, not-for-profit groups, and community organizations as well. So it's a really broad array of industry partners that you could potentially work with. And that's critical for you to know when you're looking at self-sourcing your own internship experience. And so I'd like to ask you this question, which is there a specific industry type from this list, or perhaps not included in this list, that you're hoping to gain experience in during your degree? And if so, I'd love for you to pop it into the chat and let me know, because I'm always interested to know where students are interested in undertaking their internships. And then what a HDR internship is. Let's look at some of the nuts and bolts of what makes an internship. So it's a short and clearly defined project that's with and for industry. All internship project agreements have to come through GRE+D, so they're either approved by myself or Simon in the GRE+D team. And the project is between you as the HDR student, your academic mentor, and your industry partner. Now, your academic mentor can be your supervisor, or it could also be another QUT academic staff member who has expertise that's relevant to the internship project. Now, I'll just pause here for a second and let you know that a lot of students actually prefer to have their academic mentor as someone who isn't their supervisor, purely because that in itself is a really great networking opportunity. It exposes you to another person within QUT, all of their connections, all of their network. And so you can absolutely choose to do that, and it's your choice. So the internship project, it's separate from your thesis research, but ideally we'd like it to be relevant in some way to your research topic, but relevant can be very broadly defined. So when we're saying relevant, even in just the development of general HDR skills, that's perfectly relevant. The industry partner owns the project IP for your internship project, and it can be a standalone project with industry or part of a larger collaboration. So when you're out there self-sourcing internships and you say, well, it's a standalone project is normally somewhere between 3 to 6 months, you can be aware and let your prospective industry partner know that it could also be part of a larger collaboration, say 12, 18 or 24 months long. And what we can do is work with the industry partner to plug you and other HDR interns into different components of that larger collaboration. So that's something to be aware of. Now, in terms of you, what happens with your candidature? Well, we actually pause your candidature and we pause your scholarship. So we work with the Graduate Research Centre and we move you from your thesis unit into the HDR Internship Shell unit, which is IFN 004. So feel free to put that into the QUT Digital Workplace and get the curriculum information for that unit if you like. And the industry partner provides funding, and this is done through QUT, so we handle that. And you as a student, while your scholarship is paused, you receive the funding in the form of a fortnightly stipend throughout the duration of the internship. So we want to make sure that you're still able to cover your living expenses and everything that you need to while you're undertaking an internship. And so that's why we ask for the funding from the industry partner. So the base level of funding is $10,000 for a 3-month internship. You as a student receive $9,000 of that, as I mentioned, in the form of a fortnightly stipend. And then your academic mentor supporting your internship project receives that other $1,000 in recognition of their support. Little bit of eligibility criteria to be able to undertake an internship, which you can see on the screen here. What you'll notice between all 4 degrees is a minimum of 6 months full-time equivalent study. And then for IF49, it's also successful completion of stage 2. For ED11, successful completion of the work in progress doc. And for IF80 and KK59 students, successful completion of the research project proposal. So now that you know what an internship is, how do you go about securing one? And that's obviously one of the main topics of today, but it's good for you to know there's 2 main ways that you can go about it. So your first option is to apply for the HDR internship opportunities that are open for application on our HiQ page. These come from the QUT HDR internship program that myself and Simon manage, but also through third-party provider of HDR internship experiences, HDR Intern. So if you see HDR Intern listed on our HiQ page, it's open and available for you to apply for. But then also we work with a number of other external programs such as the Parliamentary Library of Australia Summer Research Program or the Nicolas Baudin program, which is for HDR internship for engineering HDRs in France. So there's a wide range that you'll find there. Or HDRs, and this is the topic of today, can also self-source their internship. And this is a great opportunity because it's choose your own adventure. And you'll hear from Juliana in a second, and she'll be able to let you know she knew exactly where she wanted to go and was able to source that opportunity for herself. So it really does let you, and if you have a look at the internships that are on the HiQ page and go, none of them really interest me, or I haven't really seen anything that is relevant, or, I want to branch into. And that's completely fine. And so what we'll go through today is these steps underneath how you can self-source an internship. I'm going to work with you so you can identify a potential industry partner from your contacts or your network, and then establish a relationship with them before then pitching the internship to that industry partner. And then once you've done that, you then connect the industry partner with GRE+D, myself or Simon, and we help you formalize your internship agreement. Make sure you're all ready to get started. So now I'm going to invite Juliana, if you could turn your camera and mic on. That would be great. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen as well so that we can have you full screen.
Yeah.
And
sure.
Yeah, Juliana, we'd love to hear anything about your HDR internship experience.
1 second. Where is my presentation? Okay.
I'm just going to make you a co-host as well, just so that
Yeah.
you've got the ability to share your presentation too.
Sure. I just managed to share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Let me just, I make a few slides just with some points that I think it's important for students to know and to consider before applying for a self-source HDR internship. So thank you for inviting me to present that. I really like to talk about this topic because I had a really great experience, and I think everybody should have that experience during their master or their PhD. So to begin with, I select 5 reasons why you should apply for HDR internship. First, to gain confidence, because, sorry, I think it's really easy to have confidence in your lab or where you're doing your PhD after a while, because you are in a comfort zone, and you are working with something that you already are confident with, and so on. So I think it's also important to improve your time management skills, because in my case, we can stop our candidature, but I was doing my internship at the same time as I was finishing one paper. So I really improved my time management skills, where I could select my priorities and use the most of my time. And also because I did the internship just for 3 months, I could do a lot in 3 months. So I think this is really great, especially because of the environment where the internship is done, where you feels like work. So you need to be there for that certain time, and you should not stay longer than that time. So you have to get things done on like 9 to 5. So also to help with communication skills, especially for international students, if you are not feeling confident with your communication skills, and then in your lab, because you have PhD supervisor that always have your back, and you are again in your comfort zone, I feel like after a while we stop to try things by ourselves. So this helped me a lot in demonstrating my idea, communicate better what I was feeling and what I would like to do with my career. And last but not least, to improve your network. I think this is actually the most important reason why everyone should do an internship, especially because once we finish PhD or master, we want to migrate and we want to have a job. So a lot of us goes to academia because think, I'm doing a PhD. I know people from my institute, or I know the network that we have, it's always related to academic. So once you go to industry, you explore yourself, like you show yourself to others. So I think to improve network definitely is one of the most important reasons to do an internship. So what things to consider when you are trying to do a self-source internship? I think this is the most questions that I always get from my colleagues that knows that I have done an internship. When should I apply? So talking about a PhD perspective, for me, I found out that after the start of my third year, it was the right time to do an internship. Why? I had enough results in my PhD that was related to my M1, M2. So I was kind of like already sort out my PhD, and I knew that this time that I would be doing my internship would not affect in my collection of data and so on. So I think depending on the step where you are in your candidature, that's when you should apply. I always apply not between your deadlines. Like, for example, I think you only can apply after the confirmation. But I mean, if it's really close to your final seminar, I would not apply for an internship. And this takes up to 3 to 6 months. So you should really consider it like, I would like to do my internship at March next year. So now is the time for you to actually looking for where you'd like to do, why you'd like to do on this company and so on. How should I approach the company? Like for me, as Susan said, I always knew what I would like to do on my internship. I was working with a company that was producing some hydrogels that I used in my project. So I work with neuroscience, and one of my aims was to make a 3D culture using hydrogels. So I went to a biomaterial company, which produced this hydrogel, but it was related to my project, but not exactly in the field that I was working, which was great because challenged myself to learn new things and to get out of my comfort zone. So I approached them like, look, I would like to do this internship because I'm working with your products and I would like to understand more your products in order to that the knowledge that I gain while I'm doing your PhD will not be directly related, but would help me understand how I should proceed with my M3. So then I explained then why I would like to apply, as I said before. And you also need to make sure that it's really clear why should they consider your application. So everyone has strengths and weakness. I always point out why you're a good person to fit on the industry. You need to, I think, self-source internship, you need to find something that you are passionate about or you are interested about. Like, okay, I work with molecular biology, but I would like to understand a bit more of biomaterials. It's completely different from my field, but also it's related to my field because I need biomaterials to finish up my PhD. So overall, I think there are a lot of good advantages that you can get from internship experiences. So besides of our career development, you also have personal development. I made a really good friends with them at the internship. I had a great time there. I challenged myself. I could create a great network. So someone knows me, and I know someone that I can go and apply for industry position, or I even have a reference letter from someone in the industry. So you can create opportunity, you can training in different fields of your where you work with, and I think you always need to set the right goal, why and what I'm gonna gain and what I'm gonna give through this internship experience. So to finish here, I would like to thank you all, especially Susan, for all the help through my HDR internship application and so on. And I hope I did not forget anything, and I am able to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks so much, Juliana. What a great presentation. And, you know, I so enjoyed your perspective on when was the right time for you to do it. And it's so interesting because it varies from student to student. You know, I had a student who presented recently, and he had done his internship when he was 6 months in. And the nature of the internship included a literature review and, you know, a few other components. And at the end, he said to me, I felt like I had this dry run of my whole PhD condensed into the 3-month internship. And so it's sort of, he felt like it set him up really well. But I really appreciate your point that it's different for everyone depending on their individual PhD topic, what the plans with their supervisor, and when it is going to be most appropriate to be able to undertake it. And also, it was just such a pleasure to work with you, because when Juliana first reached out to me, I just loved that you were like, this is where I'm going. This is what I want to do. This is the company that I want to do it with. And in terms of self-sourcing, you know, we tried a number of things, because for a while, the industry partner didn't have budget available to host the internship. So we Julia and I kind of like teamed up to say, okay, well, let's try this avenue and let's try this avenue. So, you know, we said, okay, how about we host it through the QT HDR internship program, and if not, we can host it through APR intern, if you know, if that's a better option for them. So we tried a few, you know, avenues together, and also I really appreciated your point that it does take time, and if students are thinking of doing one early next year, they really should be starting to think about it now, because I think for us it did take about 3 months.
I think from first approved, they said they would like to, but they did not have the budget. So I think I would consider it between 4 to 6 months to be success. Depends of like time. Sometimes you want to do an internship, but then the company actually already have someone doing an internship. So it's not, doesn't depend on you or on the HDR. It's also an industry. It's like a team of thing. And one thing that I might had forget, I think you need, like, for my perspective, I would like to do on the, once I had enough, because I'm already anxious. So I was like, I don't want to do anything that could actually affecting on my candidature, like in terms of collecting results, or like, for me, I was like, okay, I have enough. So I can stop now for 3 months and do my internship and so on. And I'm still like contact them. So, you know, I might have an opportunity there once I finish. So I think it's great. And for me, I always wanted, and another thing that another reason that would be, if you have a doubt about academia or industry, you need to experience industry to see, maybe academia is great, but maybe industry fits more in your personality or what do you want for your career and so on. You know, I always knew that I was more myself, I could see myself more in industry than in academia. I love research, but I want to do research in an industry perspective of view, you know? Yeah.
Fantastic. And I wondered if maybe you could talk a little bit about the pre-internship experience, you know, the just what you go through as a student doing the internship module and, you know, formalizing the agreement with myself or Simon through GRE+D.
Yeah, I think one of a great advantage that I had. It's like I knew what I would like to do. So it was easy to approach. So since the beginning of my PhD, like I think before my 6 months, I searched at QT, HDR Internship website. And then I took all the courses, online courses that you have to do it, because to be able to apply, you need to be watch some workshop and finish some of the pre-internship application. And so I knew what are the skills I would like to improve. So I think on the HDR, we do have a questionnaire that you have to fill up. What would you like to improve, and what do you think you already are? It's already your strengths. So yeah, it's a lot of paperwork, but it's a needed paperwork. So that's why I think everyone needs to keep in mind that it's a processing. It's like things doesn't happen overnight, especially if you want something self-service internship. It's more related to what you want. But I think a great advantage of self-service internship, it's like you don't compete with anyone. Like you approved, and then you create the opportunity. It's kind of like you go and sell yourself to the company and they can buy or not. So I think it's a really great skills to have. And yeah.
It's such a great analogy, and it's true, having that pitching capability is such a great skill set. And so I feel that students who self-source their internships actually walk away with even more skills than students that just go through the application process, because it does, taking that negotiation and communication with the industry partner to get that sorted before you approach GRE+D, that's developing your skill set as well. Well, thank you so much for a fantastic presentation, Juliana.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, thank you. It was a delight to have you here. And before I head on with the rest of my workshop, does anyone have any questions for Juliana before we head on? Karine, I know you can't speak, but if you have any questions in the that you'd like to put into the chat, you're welcome to. No? Okay. All right.
So guys, we do have one chat. If anyone wants to contact me by LinkedIn, let me see. I don't know if I know. Do you have me at LinkedIn, Susan? But yes, it's like you can find me, guys, Juliana Chavez. So I'm gonna send you everyone. And like, be welcome to send me any message. I don't mind replying. Okay.
That's great. Thank you so much.
No worries. I will stop sharing. Oh.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that presentation from Juliana. Thank you so much. I think it's so important for students to hear from other students about the experience that they've had, so that you know what to expect, and also just to hear, as I mentioned at the start, every internship is so unique and so bespoke, and so every HDR internship journey is really different. And so I think it's great to hear, we had David's video and now Juliana's experience as well, and you can see some of the differences between the two, and it just gives you a really good broad overview of what to expect through the internship journey. So let's head on with more information about self-sourcing. So Ivy has just put a link into the chat, which is the self-sourcing and internship IQ page, and I would really recommend that you all start here. to have a look at more information about it. And the requirements for self-sourcing are to complete your HDR industry engagement registration. And Ivy and I will give you the link to that a little bit later in the workshop. And also to attend the self-sourcing a HDR internship workshop, which, ta-da, you're doing right now. So you're one step of the way there, which is great. And once you've done those two things, then you're able to go out and start your self-sourcing journey. So like we just heard from Juliana, why would you want to do this? And I think she said so beautifully, you get to create it, the opportunity for yourself. You don't have to compete in applications with anyone else. You're the sole applicant and candidate going for the internship with the organization that you're approaching. And as I mentioned, it's also an opportunity to practice critical skills of communication, negotiation, and pitching. And you really need those after graduation. So again, what can a self-sourced internship look like? It can be a standalone project like Juliana had of a 3-month project, or it could be part of a larger grant or research collaboration. So, you know, once you've been discussing with industry partners and you have some interest, you can reach out to me or Simon and say, hey, I have an industry partner, they're interested, but it's going to be part of a larger thing. And we can jump in at that point and help chat with you and the industry partner about what they're looking for and how we can help. So feel free to loop us into the conversation at any point in time. So what's involved with self-sourcing a HDR internship? And really the focus of this workshop is going to focus on the first 3 steps that are highlighted in yellow, the yellow boxes on the screen, of first, identifying a potential industry partner. Second, forming a relationship with the industry partner. And you'll find out shortly why that's so important. And then third, pitching the internship to the industry partner. Once you've done those 3 steps, you then participate in finalizing the internship agreement through GRE+D. So all of us work together, you, the industry partner, and myself or Simon. And then we ask you to complete the pre-internship requirements. And this is just to get you across the roles, the responsibilities, the expectations, just so that you're well prepared for your internship experience. You then commence the internship. Your pieces of assessment are the mid and the final internship presentations, which are about a half-an-hour presentation on Zoom, where you bring your mentor, Simon or myself, and your industry partner together and bring them up to speed with what you've done on your project so far. Any successes, any challenges, what you've got planned for the remainder of the internship, if it's mid-internship presentation, and if it's the final internship, maybe some direction that they could continue on with after the internship. There's a couple of post-internship requirements to complete. We get you to complete a post-internship survey so that we can find out about your experience. And then you receive the HDR Internship Certificate, which is from the Senior Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research, Professor Christopher Barnaker-Wallach. And this is something that you can share on your LinkedIn. You can link to it on your CV. And I have to say, it's absolutely such a wonderful thing to have that in your CV. I was at, if anyone is here from the Center of Data Science, feel free to say hi in the chat, but I was at an industry panel with some industry partners at the Center of Data Science just on Monday. And the industry partners all said that one of the main questions that they will ask in employment interviews is, okay, you as a HDR graduate have spent all of this time in academia. How do we know for sure that you are going to be able to perform in industry? And they all pointed to, if you can undertake a HDR internship during your degree, that is evidence to them that you are then able to fulfill the capabilities of the role that you're applying for in industry. So I really can't specify enough how important that HDR internship experience and also evidence of that experience, which is why we give you the certificate. So then you can point to that in future interviews with future prospective employers and say, I can answer that question because I've had real world experience with an industry partner where I have completed and delivered project outcomes. So very important. All right, let's move into the first 3 steps and we'll get you trained up. So the first step of identifying a potential industry partner. So recognize your network activity. I think Ivy's going to put a link into the chat of, we've got a Padlet that you can access, which has got some potential industry partner ideas. And I would recommend that you take that link away with you and give it some thought as to who is in your existing network, who your contacts are, and enter as many categories of people as you can think of. Feel free to do that now in a minute, but if you would also like to give it some future thought, you're welcome to do that outside of the workshop. Also, converse with your supervisor. Your supervisor will have their own network and connections, and perhaps you can leverage some of these to be able to form connections with prospective industry partners. And also build your personal brand. So this is just a moment to, not that in industry engagement, we really focus on LinkedIn, but as Juliana just mentioned, she's on LinkedIn, and our GRE+D careers educator, Karen Carvu, spends a lot more time on LinkedIn. And I would recommend that you attend one of her sessions or one of her one-to-one workshops to talk about building your personal brand on LinkedIn, because industry partners are going to want to look for evidence of who you are, what you can do, how you can contribute to their organization, and how you're going to fit into their existing team as well. So the more evidence that you can provide them of that through your personal brand will only increase your chances for success. So that's something to think about. In terms of your professional networks as a HDR, here are some suggestions on what you could think about. So if you think of the research peers, you might have research colleagues. So Juliana mentioned that she has research colleagues that are asking her about her internship experience. Who do you have? What about the research institutes? Are you familiar with any QUT alumni? What about not just your supervisor, but other academics in your field? So I will be sending this PowerPoint out to you all later this afternoon, so you'll have this, but feel free to take a snip of it now if you would like, because I think it's a really nice overview of how to systematically work through your existing network and connections to make a huge list. You just want an enormous list of who you know, who they're potentially connected to as a starting point, as step number 1, identifying your network and potential industry partners within that. Now, one thing I'm going to mention here, which might sound silly, but it's really not. Also think about your social connections, and the 2 people that I highly recommend to get to know well are your hairdresser and your barista. These people know everyone. And I've been connected with people through my barista previously. You know, they're on their feed, they're talking, they're meeting heaps of people all the time. So don't underestimate how important those social connections are as well. And I would really recommend getting to know your hairdresser and your barista well, and they may be able to forge connections with you. I know it's a bit of a weird tangent. It's not a professional recommendation, but it happens. So don't underestimate it. Now, here's a little bit of an adventure for you, a bit of a framing map for you in terms of identifying potential industry partners. So I hope you can see my mouse moving. You're at this step right now, which is you're looking at industry partner options in your existing network. And you might be sitting there saying, Susan, I don't know anyone. Now, I promise you that's not true. But if you are sitting there and having that thought of, no, I don't have anyone, then I highly recommend that you start building your network by attending events, conferences, and chat to your supervisor about their network. As Juliana said, one of the top reasons to undertake an internship is to expand and build your network. And having a network is absolutely crucial for being able to, and not just even for employment, but for future employment, but it could be for future research collaborations. It could be for future grant applications, collaborative applications. So having a network is just absolutely crucial. I worked in finance many, many years ago, and I still to this day have people reaching out to me, offering me jobs in finance, even though I've been in higher education for over 5 years. But that's how well-formed my network is. So if you feel like you're in that position that you go, I don't know anyone, I don't think I have a network, start today. Start today. And if I've got a few slides coming up on how you can start as well. But as I mentioned, definitely head along to a workshop by Karen Carvu, the GRE careers educator. She does fabulous workshops on networking, and it's going to be highly crucial. So if you're looking at your industry partner options and you're going, yes, I do have some. Okay, I've sat down, I've thought about who's in my network, I've chatted with my supervisor, I'm leveraging their network, I've chatted with my barista and my hairdresser, I'm leveraging their network, and I've got this extensive list, and now I've got some industry partner options that I can approach. What I recommend is to spend some time and categorize those options into A, B, and C. Now, the reason why I'm suggesting this is because in your A category, which is, I would just, to have an internship with these organizations would just be a dream. You don't want to hit all of them up at the same time. If this is your first experience at forming a relationship with an industry partner and pitching an internship with them, you want to give yourself some experience on the B and the C level industry partners, because you will get feedback from how you engage with them, and you can learn from that feedback and then apply it to your A level ones. So I would recommend you look at your prospective partners, categorize them into A, B, and C, and maybe do one from each category at the same time. Learn from that experience. As Juliana said, it's not just dependent on you that you want an internship, it's also dependent on them. They may not have the time, they may not have the human resources, they may not have the financial resources, it may not be the right time. So you will receive some no's. Maybe Juliana didn't, but it's likely that you might receive some no's. And so you don't want to burn through all of your A-listers first up. Get some experience on the B's and C's, and then come back even stronger for the rest of your A-listers. Once you've categorized them, do some preliminary research on each of those industry partners to understand who they are, what their core business is, and maybe what some of the challenges are that they're facing in their industry sector. This is so important, and Juliana made such a great point, which is that you need to be able to sell yourself in how you are going to be able to contribute to them. You might be the most amazing researcher, the most amazing human being in the world, but if you're not able to demonstrate how you can be relevant and contribute to their organization, they're going to say no. So do the research, understand a little bit about each of them, and also some of the challenges. And the reason why it's good to understand the challenges is because that's often a stepping stone later into how you pitch an internship to the industry partner. So once you've done your research on the partners, then begin contacting the industry partners. And this could be by LinkedIn, it could be by email, and start hitting up those categories of A, B, and C. So if you are more in this category of, I don't know, I'm not sure I know anyone, what's a network? And you need some help networking, I highly recommend the Employability resources on Blackboard. Here are a few options that I would recommend to get you started. Connections, opening doors, creating and maintaining a powerful first impression, strengthening your connections. And so tell me about yourself. And these are all modules that are free for all QUT students, and they are just so amazingly valuable. And it's really going to help you in those initial stages as you are beginning to network with prospective industry partners and to forge those connections. So I highly recommend, and even if you are a fantastic networker, pick one. We can always upskill. There's always room for improvement. So pick one of these modules, and hopefully you'll be able to strengthen your existing networking skills even further. Okay, so that was step one on identifying your connections and prospective industry partners. This is now moving on to step two, which is forming a relationship with an industry partner. So how do you do that? You're reaching out to industry partners on email or LinkedIn. What do you say? The first I would recommend is to develop an elevator pitch. And this is just a short, persuasive speech or just a few sentences that spark interest from the industry partner in who you are and what you do. So what is an elevator pitch? Now, as the name suggests, you've got 10 floors in an elevator, and you're next to the CEO of Hastings Deering or Microsoft or, whoever one of your dream partners are, and you've got time that the elevator takes for 10 floors to really wow them. What do you do? So your elevator pitch should grab their attention. It should be something captivating and relatable. It could be something like a common pain point that they're familiar with. I was literally just speaking to Hastings Deering on Monday, and I started with how's El Nino treating you? How, because obviously weather impacts their business so much, and straight away, the Simon from Hastings Deering said, "Oh my God, don't even get me started. We're going to go into another El Nino, and it causes delays, it causes business problems, it causes problems for our customers." So there you go, something snappy and relatable. I said one sentence and he was super engaged. Spark their curiosity. Tell them you found, I think that's meant to be solution, a solution to their problem. So, if let's take the El Nino. You could say, do you have a team dedicated to looking at how you can work on mitigating delays when severe weather problems are faced? That would definitely spark their curiosity. And then summarizing what you do, say how you do it and also what's the outcome of what you do, and be ready for more questions. So summarizing what you do, I might just segue here for a section for a minute. If you've not participated in the 3-minute thesis competition, I highly recommend that you do, because being able to summarize what you do concisely in a language and a communication style that's open and accessible for anyone to be able to understand, and not just people within your field of research, is so highly valuable. So being able to concisely and elegantly and with accessibility summarize what you do is really important. I'm just going to have a look in the chat. Okay, no, that's Ivy with links. I was just making sure there were no questions coming through. So that's a lot of information, but I would love to put you on the spot now. So we have, how many students do we have here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 4 students. We were going to do breakout rooms, but I think seeing as we're quite a small group, we can just do it in the main room. Corinne, I know that you're not able to speak out loud, but if you would like to put something into the chat, please do. But would anyone be willing to turn their, yes, thanks, Juliana, thanks for joining. Would anyone be able to turn their camera and their mic on and be brave to share just a draft elevator pitch, a little bit about you. Would you like an example of what an elevator pitch could look like to get you started? I'm happy to provide you with mine. Bear in mind that I have about 3, depending on whether I'm talking to academics or HDR students or industry partners. So I change it up depending on my audience, but I'll give you my HDR student one, which is, hi, I'm Susan from the Graduate Research Education and Development team, and I co-manage the HDR Internship program. So I'm helping students find industry experience through internships so that I can help equip them for life after their degree. Something just very simple. Would anyone be willing to have a go? Oh, we've got a couple of people that can't turn on the mic. Javier, I think you're the only one that may be able to. Would you be willing? Okay. All right, we'll leave it there. But that is homework for today, to practice your elevator pitch. And if you're not sure how to do it, please go back to those employability resources. Ivy put the link for that in the chat, and it will walk you through how to draft an elevator pitch. All right. So we're still in step 2, which is how to form a relationship with an industry partner. So you've reached out to them, you've given them a really snappy elevator pitch of who you are and what you do. What next? How do you form that relationship? You do that by suggesting an informational interview. Now, the reason why we recommend this is based on previous success. So imagine you're standing at the QUT shuttle bus stop and someone comes up to you and says, hi, what's your name? My name's Susan. Okay, great. Can I move in with you? You would just be so thrown off, and your automatic response would be, no, I don't know anything about you. You could be a complete psycho. Why would I let you into my home? No, just you need to leave. So imagine now industry partners who get a cold call from a student. Hi, I'm a PhD student at QUT. Can I have an internship? They are so likely to say no because they don't know anything about you. So this is why we recommend asking them for an informational interview first. This is an informal question and answer meeting between you and someone in the organization that you're interested in finding out more about, maybe about their role or maybe about the organization as a whole. And just, you can say to them, okay, in your email, this is my elevator pitch, this is who I am and what I do. I would love to, meet up by Zoom or in person. We could, go for a cup of coffee. And I'd just like to find out more about what your organization does. Would you have 30 minutes that you could spare? And, most people are actually really generous with their time. And when you're asking for assistance in that way, they inevitably say yes more than often. That's what we found in our experience anyway. So when you're in the informational interview, don't ask for the internship here, but do ask questions that are going to help give you more information so that you know how to then pitch an internship to them later on. So Ivy has put some links into the chat on some resources for informational interviews and how to request, conduct, and follow up on them, and also questions to ask and some motivational why you should do an informational interview. So again, that's homework to have a look through those resources so that you are comfortable in asking for an informational interview when you're trying to form a relationship with an industry partner. So here's just a couple of other tips from our careers educator, Karen Carvu, on how to be successful in informational interviewing. focusing your attention on listening rather than speaking. So really just absorbing. You might take some notes and be curious. They might give you some information and ask more questions about that. And then also to be gracious, really understand that everyone's time is so valuable. I think time is the most valuable commodity a human being has, actually. And so be really grateful and gracious that they have donated their time to you. And it could be an opportunity that you could also ask for future mentoring. That's something to think about as well. And just to be grateful for the opportunity to have met with them and take that information away so that you can later pitch the internship suggestion to them. Now, we were going to have a breakout room on this, but I'm going to skip over that. And I mentioned this before about the 3MT competition, 3-minute thesis competition. And Liz mentioned she's the editor-in-chief of the conversation, and she was also on the judging panel for the 2021 3-minute thesis competition. And she said a really great quote, which is, many people in industry, they don't have PhDs. And it doesn't mean that they're stupid or that they need to be patronized. It does mean that you need to cut through the jargon of your field to be able to communicate your research in plain terms to a broad, non-academic audience. Smart and curious people won't be able to engage if they can't understand what you're saying. And I think that when she said that quote, she was in a webinar with the Office of Industry Engagement, and I was madly typing it down because I just thought, what fabulous advice for engaging with prospective industry partners. And so bear that in mind in the language that you use and your communication style when you are in that informational interview and gathering information from the prospective industry partner. Okay, so we've done steps 1 and 2. Step 1 was identifying your network. Step 2, forming a relationship with the industry partner. Now, you've done your informational interview, you've got a much better understanding of the organization, what they do, maybe some of their recent successes, maybe some of the challenges that they're facing or their sector is facing. Now it's the time to pitch an internship to that industry partner. And how do you do it? You can, first of all, thank them for donating their time and let them know what stood out to you from the informational interview. People love to know that they've been listened to. Then you can pitch the internship with the QUT HDR Internship website and program flyer. So you're very welcome to email us at hdr.intern@qut.edu.au, and I'll be able to provide those to you. And then briefly demonstrate the value that you would add to their organization through an internship. So, this could be, as Juliana said, with the biomaterials, she was saying, I come from a slightly transdisciplinary approach, but I think that I would add a lot of value to the hydrogel and biomaterial development. And then provide an industry CV, not an academic one, and we can provide you with a template of that. And also working with our GRE careers educator, Karen, would be a great way to update your industry CV. And then ask them if they would like to be introduced to GRE so that they can find out more about the HDR internship program. So this is where if you're sending it to me, I would then say, okay, great, you've got an interested industry partner. Would you like me to organize a Zoom with them to tell them more about the program, or I can do it all over email? And then we can take the steps forward there to organize and finalize your internship. I would also recommend consulting the pitching guide from QUT Entrepreneurship. They have so much experience in pitching, and it's always best to learn from the best. So I highly recommend consulting that as another resource for you as well. And it's really important to know what you have that's relevant. And I think Juliana touched on this in her presentation as well. And this is things to bear in mind of what to include in your industry CV. Definite relevant skills. That is the #1 item that prospective industry partners are looking for, your skill set. Then your education. So you could even look back on prior unit outlines to get some little snippets of what you've done in your education, and then relevant employment experience. So one example here is we had a student undertake an internship with Quagoma earlier in the year. Now, this internship was to help train their software recognition system through AI and machine learning. It had a Western bias, and so the students' internship project was to train it to be able to recognize Australian and Indigenous art, and to also start to train it to recognize other types of art, Japanese art, Balinese art, that sort of thing. And so this student, obviously their PhD was in AI and machine learning, and they had previously worked in their home country in an art museum, in an art gallery. So that was highly relevant. And I have to say, there were two really strong contenders for this internship opportunity. And the reason why this particular student got it was because he'd had that relevant employment experience in the art gallery previously. And they felt that based on that, he would just be that slightly better fit, knowing and having some experience with the art world beyond his AI skill set and what he could contribute to the project. So have a look at, and be aware of what the industry partner needs and what they're looking for, and really be able to demonstrate that in your skills, your education, and your employment experience. Then a little bit about your research topic. As Juliana said, it can be a comfort zone for a lot of students. So you want to start with your research topic because that's your bread and butter. You're so confident and familiar with it. And the industry partner is only a little bit interested in that because they're more interested in your skills and how you can contribute to them on the internship project. So just a little bit of time on your research topic, and then prepare for the interview by making a short list of examples from your education and employment history. And if you would like to know more about how to prepare for HDR internship interviews, I'd invite you to come along to our HDR internship workshops, and we work through interview strategies in those workshops. I've got a slide coming up which will show you when we have the next HDR internship workshop coming up, so I'll share that in a moment. Now, if you're not sure of your strengths, and as Juliana mentioned, being aware of your strengths and weaknesses is really vital when pitching an internship to a prospective industry partner, I would recommend that you undertake a character strengths survey. This is the one that we use, the VIA survey. You can use any. We get no reward for promoting this one. It's just one that we find works quite well, and it will help you to be able to formulate a pitch as well, just by knowing yourself a little bit better, knowing your strengths and weaknesses. And then for preparation for the interview and internship, as I said, we do a lot of this in the HDR internship workshop, but especially I guess I just wanted to bring your attention to a couple of resources that are available, which are the ASIN modules and also Big Interview. So all of these are free for QUT students, and it's really great, especially if you're someone that's gone, say, perhaps from high school to your undergraduate degree and then on to your HDR degree, and maybe you haven't had a lot of experience in workplaces. Just tapping in to one of these modules will really help prepare you for your internship. And Big Interview, wow, it's just an amazing resource, and I can't believe it's free for QUT students actually. And interviews are challenging, and especially if you haven't had one for a while, you can go in really rusty. And so by practicing your interview skills beforehand on Big Interview, it will really set you up for success. And this is just a deeper dive into one of those ASIN modules that's available for you. And this is particularly helpful. We've had feedback from international students that it's particularly helpful if they've not worked in an Australian workplace before and understanding Australian workplace culture. So I would highly recommend. Okay. That was a lot of information, but going back to the beginning on the requirements of what you need to do to self-source a HDR internship, if you remember, there were two things. One, attending this session, which you've done, great. And two, completing your HDR industry engagement registration form. So Ivy's put the link to that into the chat now. And it adds, well, you're on our mailing list anyway, but it will also trigger an email to your supervisor, which is a really great starting point for discussing that you want to undertake an internship and exploring their network and their contacts to be able to help you self-source your own internship as well. So please fill that registration form out. And then in terms of keeping up with our workshops and also internship opportunities, there's emails that come out from GRE regularly. So the HDR Matters one is sent weekly on a Monday, and that's when you can find out about different workshops that are coming up. And also I would recommend looking out for grad school modules. There's a lot of modules that are really, really useful when you're preparing to undertake an internship. And so have a look at what's coming up there. And then our beautiful orange HDR internship opportunity emails, they come out every Tuesday. They're sent weekly to you, and you can have a look through and see what opportunities are currently available as well. Down the bottom, I would recommend there's a link in all of those internship emails where, so this link here, that's to register for the QUT HDR Industry Engagement Program, which we just saw on the previous slide, but also there's an opportunity to register an expression of interest with HDR Intern, which, if you remember, is QUT's third-party provider of HDR internship opportunities. I would really recommend completing that as well, because we've had a number of students who have gained internship opportunities from completing that link. And a couple of their success stories are on our external website. So I would really recommend to take the time to complete that. Now, as I mentioned, we have other workshops that we offer besides this one. HDR internships is where we spend a lot more time preparing for internship interview preparation. The next one is coming up on Wednesday, the 19th of October. And then we have it repeated again on the 7th of December, and the self-sourcing an internship again on the 6th of December. And you can get the full list of training and workshops on the links that Ivy has just put into the chat. Now, before I move into the Q&A session for this workshop, I would love if you could tell us what you thought of this session. There's a QR code on the screen that you can scan, and Ivy's also put the link into the chat. I would love if you could take 1 minute to fill out the quick anonymous survey to let us know what you think, and your feedback is going to help us make this session even better in the future. While you're doing that, let me tell you, we have something so exciting coming up, which is the HDR Design Sprint. It is a 6-week program with just a 2-week intensive full-time period from the 14th to the 25th of November. And we are working with an ecosystem of industry partners this year, which is really, really exciting. We're going to unpack digital growth opportunities of sustainable development goals, and to help shift the SDG narrative from corporate social responsibility to corporate social opportunity. So students will be working in transdisciplinary teams to be able to work with industry partners, not to provide them solutions, because it's a shorter program than an internship, but to provide them with insight and to direction and opportunities. And you will be exposed to many, many, many industry partners. The partners we are bringing on board, they are coming on board with the expectation that they are looking at students, they are engaging with the students with the intention that they will be taking on interns at the end of the Design Sprint program. So again, if you're wanting to look for ways to engage with industry partners, this is a fantastic opportunity. Ivy's put the link into the chat. as to how you can register your interest in the design sprint, and I would invite you to do that, and we'll be in touch with more information. So this is Simon and myself. We're your HDR partnership officers, and we are really here to help. We do care greatly about our students and them having successful and positive internship opportunities. So please feel free to reach out to us at any time at hdr.intern@qut.edu.au with any questions. I'm certainly someone who, I'll attend workshops and then the next day I think, oh, I should have asked that. So if that happens to you, feel free to email. But for now, I would say let's close the session and then open for Q&A. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to turn your mic on, or you can type them into chat if you're in open plan space. And if you haven't done so already, we would love if you could please enter your student ID number into the chat box so that we can record your attendance. So does anyone have any questions for me? Okay, so Karine has said, what if my supervisor will not agree that I can do an internship? Oh, that's interesting. Karine, do you have any more information on that as to why they would say that? And I will say there are some supervisors who are very focused on just PhD completion. That's their main goal. And so anything peripheral to that, they're not interested in their students doing. So you raise a really good point. I would recommend just finding out why they're suggesting that. Maybe in my experience, and I'm not saying that your supervisor is in this case, but when I do go and speak with supervisors, it's interesting that there's a lot of misinformation out there about what an internship is or not. So maybe they don't have all of the information or the correct information. They're really welcome to reach out to me. I'm also happy to direct them to our GRE+D director, Professor Esa Yartinen, because he is also a supervisor and he has supervised students on internships. So we could also connect them with him to have that conversation about why an internship is such a valuable experience. So I hope that gives you a few options, but feel free to email me after the workshop and we can talk about why and also how is the best way for us to be able to chat with your supervisor, and hopefully we can get them on board with supporting you. But again, the other option is, as I mentioned, your supervisor doesn't need to be your academic mentor on internship. You can have another QUT staff member who has relevant expertise to the internship project. So that's another avenue for you as well. Are there any other questions? You're welcome, Kareem. Okay, there's no more questions coming through the chat, so that might be it for now. So I will close the session now and just remind you that if you think of anything later, you're very welcome to email me. I'm just going to type the email address into the chat. There we go. So if you think of anything at a later stage, please feel free to email me. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us for the self-sourcing and internship workshop today. And I hope it was valuable. And I wish you all the best on your journey as you self-source your own HDR internship. And thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.